I'm sorry? Hello?
What's up? Is it by phone or by...
Zoom. We're reaching him via Zoom. I don't know. I don't know. Can you hear us? Okay. Let's just work on the line again.
What about Doctor?
We'll just work on the line. We'll also be talking to Dr. Rashid Rahman, who's Executive Director for the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Let me ask you this hypothetical question.
Ask.
If the numbers were not 138, 137, and it was a clear cut of majority with a difference of 20 seats, would the second deputy speaker have still gotten up to go and vote in a situation like this?
That is the beauty of the constitutional process we've put ourselves in. That we don't even need this hypothetical question because we've had it before. In the 7th Parliament, we had a clear majority.
Yes.
Now, go back to the 5th Parliament. The 5th Parliament, where in the transition, Nanado on the first round would have won the presidency, and the NDC would have been a majority in Parliament by 131 seats. Have you ever thought of that? A lot of us have lost sight of that. Perhaps this conundrum would have been resolved far earlier. Perhaps. But before, during
sorry to just cut you until we have him back on the line. Honorable, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. We started off with what happened in Parliament on Monday, which built up on Friday, then into Monday. First of all, from the position of the minority, would there be a time that we can resolve these issues once and for all?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing to know is that maintaining order in the House is the responsibility of the person presiding, the Speaker.
That's right.
And that person must use the rules to maintain order. I think that consistently, when the House has descended into chaos, when you do a thorough analysis of the situation, you will see one underlying issue, which is that the person presiding appears to be misapplying or misunderstanding the rules. And because that is the person responsible for ensuring order, when your court pans down, apparently misapplying or trying to deliberately misunderstand the rules, then you lose that capacity to maintain order. And that is, for me, the real underlying issue. Very often, we miss that point, and we focus on those who are using means that we may not approve of to try and ensure that the person presiding goes according to the rules. I mean, take all the instances when this House has descended into chaos. I can assure you, it is always the fault of the person presiding. I mean, the January incident, it was the person trying to apply certain rules to the determination of whether or not a particular member of parliament who had been elected, that had not yet been sworn, had been properly served with a court, order. That was the real issue. And, the minority took a position that you cannot, enforce or serve a court order on a member of parliament using the method that you are using. So that was the real issue. And of course, the second other issue was the definition of free and fair secret ballots. And the minority was insistent that the ballot indeed has to be free and fair and secret. And so any arrangement there that constrained the liberty of an elected member of parliament to exercise his ballot, freely will not be accepted. And I keep reminding people that when the minority fought and a free and fair system was put in place, it was actually the MPP that benefited from it, because it was MPP members that were able to vote for an NDC candidate instead of an MPP nominated, candidate.
And how did that benefit the MPP?
We fought, but then the MPP benefited by being able to vote freely for whoever they wanted to vote. If it wasn't a secret ballot, I doubt if any NPP member would have been able to vote for an NDC candidate in that heated context. The same way, I mean, the day before yesterday, the real issue was whether or not the speaker was presiding had a voting right. And this same speaker had indicated earlier on that a speaker was presiding has no voting right. And it wasn't just that he was getting up to go and use the washroom, he had announced even before the vote started that he is going to exercise his voting right. Yeah. He didn't wait till the vote was, underway for him to make a pretense of leaving to do something else and then coming into the chamber to sit for a while or join them during the division and then get called to come in. He announced before he even started the division that I will vote. And so he was determined to breach the rules in clear violation. In fact, that issue was debated. He himself asked for a debate on that question, whether or not he could vote. And you recall that Honorable Dr. Aine got up and argued and showed him the specific rules that did not allow him to vote. And he insisted. So the minority was waiting and watching him to see whether he will indeed execute his threat to vote in clear violation of the rules. And when he did, they resisted that. So I think that it is very simple. At all times, let's stick to the rules.
All right.
I mean, right from day one, we in the minority are clear that if there's going to be a vote, we have only 137, and they have 137, and they have an independent member who has decided to align with them. So we expect them, if they still have the loyalty of the independent member, to get 138 votes. So we are not under any illusion that when there is a vote and all the numbers are in the chamber, that they will lose and we will win. But if they fail to mobilize their numbers and to vote, and we at all times are able to mobilize our numbers and to stand our grounds and resist anything that we don't like, it's their fault. Right. So it is not our case that our position must prevail at all costs and that we'll use force to assert our position. If the first day when we're voting on the policy, all the 138 MPP members and independent members were in the chamber and Alban Bagbin was presiding, there's no way that we would have won the vote. So they should blame themselves. Right. They shouldn't turn it around and blame the NDC side.
All right, can the first deputy speaker vote when he's not in the seat and allow the second deputy speaker to preside over matters in parliament? Can the first deputy speaker vote when he's not in the seat? He just gets up and allows the second deputy speaker? Yes.
The rules say that the person presiding does not have an original vote. That's what the rules say.
Okay, so if it's not presiding,
it doesn't matter whether it is the first deputy speaker or the second deputy speaker or an ordinary member of the House can actually be elected by the House to preside. When the speaker, the first and the second deputy speakers are not there, we can actually ask any ordinary member, by our election to go and preside.
But so if he's not presiding, he's allowed to vote. If he's not presiding, he's allowed to vote.
If he's not presiding, he is allowed to vote.
So this time around, he said that, well, I don't want to preside anymore. I want the second deputy speaker to preside and go and vote. What's wrong with that?
Yes. Well, but that's the point. The point is that you started the process. And so at the point when you start the process, you are presiding. You cannot break the presiding process in the middle of a vote. You are seeking to break the presiding process in the middle of a vote. That is the difference. In the middle of a vote, then you say, okay, let me break my role as a presiding member, then go and then Nicodemously vote, and then come back and assume my role as a presiding member. It's obvious that this is what the rules were meant to prevent. Because when you assume the role of a presiding person, you are supposed to be neutral and not take sides. You are not even allowed to take part in the debate. He's talking about the rights of a member of parliament. When you are speaker, the rules say that the speaker does not take part in the debate. So when you are speaker, you lose certain rights. And not voting is one of those rights that you lose if you're a member of parliament and you are presiding. So no matter how strong your constituents feel about an issue, when you are presiding, you cannot state the views of your constituents on that issue because you are not allowed to participate in the debate. So these are clear restrictions on the rights of a member of parliament who is presiding.
All right. You earlier talked about, to maintain order in the House, it's much dependent on the one presiding. For the minority, if things are going that way and the minority also stands its ground, saying that they insist this is what they want to be done, else there's going to be confusion, doesn't that also bring up confusion in a way by making it look like, by making it the fault also of the minority? Because if the one presiding is going in a way, there's a way of handling situations, but rather making it so much.
Well, you see, the misfortune we have is that this person who is presiding has a track record of not allowing you to take the remedial measures to correct him. Recall last week when we did not participate in the activities in Parliament, and then we came by a motion to set aside or rescind what they had done. And the motion essentially questioned the conduct of this same first deputy speaker. What did he do? He threw our motion away. He didn't even admit it because he didn't want to subject himself to scrutiny, his conduct to scrutiny. So again, this is somebody who has displayed a tendency that if you seek to use the rules to correct him, he won't even allow that to happen. So it then becomes a situation where you are left with no option but to make sure that he doesn't even get his way in violating the rules, so that you will now go the route of struggling to correct him using the rules, and again he stands in your way and make it impossible for you to correct him using the rules. So you don't even allow him to break the rules in the first place.
Don't we also have a minority that has a tendency of opposing everything that the government brings to Parliament?
Oh, really? So government every year should collect 6.5 billion of people's private money in the name of taxation? I mean, the e-levy. I mean, this is state-sponsored highway robbery. The state is just going to stand on the electronic highway, and anybody who is passing with his money, the state would dip its hands into, the person's pocket and take out 1.75% of the value of anything that the person has in his pocket, and is passing on the electronic highway with it. I mean, that kind of taxation definitely will be resisted. Okay. And that is 6-point-something billion of private money that you just want to take. And yet, you can't do the simple thing of mobilizing 138 MPs in the chamber to vote for it. When they were trying very hard to prevent a vote, it was because they didn't have the numbers in the chamber. And that was why the second deputy speaker quickly, suspended sitting, ran out of the chamber, and then instead of the 30 minutes that he gave, we sat there for close to 2 hours so that they could mobilize their numbers in the chamber. And then, so you couldn't even do the basic thing of mobilizing your 138 MPs in the chamber to vote for something that you consider very important to your economic policy.
All right, moving on. Will the minority relax its position on the e-levy?
Absolutely not. I mean, we maintain our position. We are against the e-levy. We'll resist the e-levy. We'll vote against the e-levy. We know that ultimately all that we have is 137 votes, but we'll make sure the 137 votes count in any issue that has to do with the e-levy.
Right. So in other words, at the end of the day, you might miss out in the voting then.
Well, if they are ever able to organize their 138 votes and then the matter is put to a vote, we maintain our position and that the public sees that 137 MPs voted against the bill.
Can the minority relax its stance? Can it just relax its stance by creating the impression that they're making things difficult for the government?
Oh, no, I don't think that our objective is to make things difficult for the government. I think the problem is because government itself has been intransigent. Government is not willing to make any concession in relation to this levy. And government is not looking at all the alternative ways of raising funds. And I think that is what is affecting the discussions. Recall that there were engagements. We had some engagements. The engagements broke down because Government clearly stuck to its guns and said it was not moving. And so if you go into an engagement and you are not willing to move, I think that it makes it difficult.
Okay, all right. I noticed you are at the airport, so we'll see how quick we can just allow you to go. Mr. Babasama has got some questions for you, just two of them, Dan. We just let him go.
Taken by the government. So to characterize e-levy the way he did is totally unfair to the process of taxation in the minds of the public. And then the second thing is who determines the rightness of rules? It's the Speaker.
Yes, Speaker.
The order 5 and 6 are very clear. In the case of doubt, these orders shall be interpreted by Mr. Speaker as he deems fit. Only Mr. Speaker is the determinant of right or wrong in the chamber. 6, in all cases not provided for in these orders, Mr. Speaker shall make provisions as he deems fit. And Mr. Yarga knows these things. Last time I heard rumors he wanted to be second deputy speaker, so he knows about these rules. The NDC minority doesn't determine what is right and therefore insists on enforcing what is right by violence in the chamber. It is the speaker's sole prerogative. And then the question about middle of process, and that is where he was caught. He admits that now the first deputy speaker can actually leave the chair to go and vote, but then he says that he can't do it in the middle of a process. That is wrong. I was in the 7th Parliament, and there were several instances where we were doing legislation, other things, and in the middle of it, the Speaker, Right Honorable Aaron Michael Quay, would leave, and then the second Deputy Speaker, today, Right Honorable Speaker Alban Bagbin, will come and sit in the chair and put the question. Something that Michael Quay had been doing, and we leave halfway through, he would come in and ask, have you put the question? We say, no, we are at the stage of putting the question. And he puts the question. That is right in the middle of the decision-making process. So nothing restrains the first deputy speaker from rising from his chair, getting out into the... He doesn't have to pretend he's going to the washroom or anywhere. He has a right. Once he steps off the podium, takes his robe off, he has a right to sit there as a member of parliament, exercise all the rights as a member of parliament, and vote for any legislation ongoing, as long as the second deputy speaker is in the chair. And he doesn't have to go back to the chair. He can also go back if he chooses. All he has to do under Order 13.1 is for whoever is presiding to signal the other person, come and replace me. No reason ought to be given. Nothing of the sort. So the majority is well within their rights where the speakerships are concerned. And all this is happening because Speaker is abdicating his responsibility to maintain balance in the House.
Yeah, we're told he's not well.
Yeah, but if he's not well on that occasion, just when the vote on the e-levy was about to come on, did he cite illness? Was he not well? Did he move? Because as soon as the speaker leaves the chair, there's imbalance in the 137, 138.
Yes.
Because you have 137, which the NDC are relying on. They are bent, and you can feel Ayanga licking his lips. Oh, we have 130. Oh, we'll mobilize them. They are enjoying the 137, right? So only the speaker in the chair, as the independent arbiter, is able to ensure that there's 137 plus 1 on the other side. As soon as he leaves, he tilts the balance in favor of this situation that happened during the approval of the e-levy. So it is his responsibility.
But he can't always be there.
On the crucial day of the e-levy,
deputies.
On the crucial thing when he started the debate on the e-levy, then he decided to leave.
First time having, deputies preside over crucial.
Of course not. But the numbers. You ask me whether
so
this
would
have happened.
So the problem is the numbers.
Yes. You ask me if this would have happened if we had 20 extra. Even if we had 5 extra, it wouldn't happen. So the situation is about numbers. And because it's about numbers, it puts a heightened touch, a heightened light on the speaker's behavior. It makes the speaker the center of everything, because the speaker is all powerful in the chamber. I've just read 5 and 6. The speaker has a lot of determinant power in the chamber. So if the speaker cannot hold the balance in this numbers game, then we will have major difficulties going forward. If every time there is sensitive legislation, the Right Honorable Alban Bagbin will decide to leave his seat, then we will have problems in this House. And that's the point I'm making.
Should we be talking about numbers, or we should talk about parliamentary proceedings?
The numbers are consequent on the proceedings. The proceedings underline everything that is done in the House.
Yes.
But it is also based on numbers. Committee membership is numbers. You do committees based on... Because you must always have the possibility of an odd number.
Yeah.
So now you have committees where they are equal. Forcing casting vote all the time. It is not the best of procedure. So the numbers matter. And that's why you have a majority and a minority. It's numbers. You understand? So the numbers are intertwined with the procedure. It's virtually one sitting on the other. So you can't move away from the numbers.
Because I see that the bigger problem here is just the numbers, and that's what is really creating almost all
once the numbers come into the mischief can be, you know, the way Ayega is licking his lips.
Numbers.
He says whenever you have to mobilize the numbers. And for me, if we don't break this deadlock one way or the other, it will be very problematic. Because mobilizing half of the House on a regular basis to take ordinary mundane decisions, if it descends into this partisanship, will mean that virtually the government will have to end. Why? Because it will begin to clash with the government's duty under 78, is it 78, to take a majority of ministers from parliament. So these ministers have to abandon their duties in the executive and come and sit in parliament every time a decision has to be taken. And parliament is taking decisions every day. So literally, it means that the government has to stop for all these ministers to sit in parliament because of the numbers. And if the NDC is going to insist that we have those numbers and we are willing to mobilize them and sit there, what it means is that they are going to indirectly undermine the constitutional provision for other members on the majority side to help with the executive work. So they can't travel, they can't sit in
I don't think they will undermine that. I mean, that's what the Constitution provides. And whatever is also happening is also in the Constitution.
And so what is happening now is really creating a tension. And that tension ought to be resolved with egos coming down and we all appreciating our roles. That's why I began by saying, how far does the minority go in having its say? When Ayega says we will resist at all costs, we won't agree, they are going too far. They are going too far. But they have the numbers, so they can make those noises.
Can we also say that what is happening now is giving us a picture of a parliament that is not being a rubber stamp parliament, a parliament that we say that a minority have your say, majority have your way type.
But
because this is giving us some sense of a parliament that is, quote unquote,
but what is the role of parliament? Why do we have a majority and a minority? Where does decision making emanate? For example, the executive brings a bill to the House. The House debates it. We have private members' bills. But the Constitution itself says that where it involves taxation or financial commitment, the ordinary member cannot bring it. It has to be issue from the executive. So if that comes in, and it's the executive's policy, and it is seeking support from parliament to implement that policy, is it the case that the minority has a right to say that they refuse to allow the majority to pass its legislation, even if it's with a majority of one? Because now they are abusing the majority of one. They are saying that we don't have a majority. It's 137, 136. Every time Babin leaves the chair, it's 137, 137. Critically, essentially. Every time Babin leaves the chair, it becomes 137, 137. And that's an abuse of their numbers. Because you can't say use your numbers to entirely stop government legislation. So it's not a Robert Stamp parliament. It's a parliament that is beginning to abuse its rights and duties. It's a parliament that the majority is taking advantage of. It's a parliament that is going far beyond its rights and duties. We have to examine all its duties: representative duties, legislative duties, oversight duties. I believe oversight is about reviewing implementation. Oversight cannot be about running legislation for the majority, determining what goes into legislation, particularly on finance bills. The minority cannot insist on what goes into finance bills. They
make the legislation.
Yeah, but their duty is to insist that this legislation, as far as we are concerned, does not meet the expectations of Ghanaians. So we will vote. And they vote no. And we have a majority and we vote yes. Then at the next election, it is determined. That's what it should be.
But in this type of voting...
But now what is happening is
because the numbers does not favor...
They are misusing the numbers. That's the point I'm making. They are misusing the numbers. Babi is deliberately shaking his duty to sit there and balance the numbers. They are misusing the numbers. And then when Babi leaves, and then the deputy speaker sits there and decides to also go and exercise his duty and right as a member of parliament to vote, they use fiscal force to stop him. They snatch his chair and run away with the chair. They slap other people and all that. What's that for?
So you're saying that the speaker not being there is deliberate?
I'm saying that he shouldn't be leaving the house in critical moments.
So it's not deliberate?
Well,
let's talk about what's in the center. I mean, the e-levy, which has generated all these challenges. Can government just tone down a bit, tone down in the sense that reduce or compromise on the figure, 1.75?
Well, at the moment, I believe that the government has been engaging the NDC, and that at some point, to the best of my knowledge, as far as I was aware of those consultations, there was a sense that the government may come down to 1.5, and that the minority had accepted
1.5.
No, the validity of the concept, and that they were willing to discuss the number. So they had come up to about 1.
As in the minority?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they had come up to about 1. So in there somewhere, in between that debate, negotiations broke down because the NDC outside Parliament decided to exert itself and insist that it didn't want the e-levy. So they whipped...
As in the party?
As in the party. As in the party itself. Refused to go along with any kind of compromise. And therefore they whipped the parliamentary caucus in line. So
not to accept the 1%?
Not to accept anything at all. Not to accept the e-levy at all. So negotiations within Parliament broke down. Just as it did with the referendum proposal in 2019. You have a diversity, a dichotomy of views. The leadership in Parliament being reasonable in the exercise of their representative and legislative function, and the party outside Parliament insisting on hard positions because of political advantage. You know, so where we stand now, I think that generally there's a sense that the concept of the e-levy is necessary.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
From where? From where do you get that sense from?
There is a sense that, even from within Parliament, there's a sense that,
oh, really?
George, there are conversations going on. The difficulty...
But do you also get the sense from the people,
the difficulty is the pitch. Well, look at the operators. You know, the operators have already gone on to reduce theirs.
Well, that's Airtel, Tigo and MTN here.
Yeah, but they are in a chamber, they are in an industry, and industries tend to flow with conventions within the industry. So that part of it also is going on. What
but is there a sense among the population?
There is a sense, and that sense is being you have a push and pull effect. The push effect is what the NDC is trying to capitalize on, and then without engaging the merits or otherwise, you can have push factors that say, hey, no. Then the pull effect is those who are coming round to accept it. So before the 18th, when Parliament resumes, I expect a lot more engagement, whether public engagement or behind the scenes with Parliament, with other stakeholders or otherwise, because the technical understanding of the e-levy must also be imparted to the population, apart from the larger conceptualization. But the larger concept is very, very important for us. I mean, what is our primary source of revenue? That's what you should be asking yourself. In advanced economies, primary source is taxes, income taxes, corporate taxes, taxes from a productive real sector of the economy. In our case, that is almost non-existent. So you have very few income taxes. You have very little property taxes. So most of it comes from taxes from the ports.
From the ports,
You know, and then levies on indirect taxes, levies on petroleum, and then other products. It's not good enough. The flow is not heavy.
See, the problem here is that the problem here is that we understand the primary source of revenue generation for a government. But if you have a party that was in opposition and made it look as if taxation was overly done and something that is being squeezed out of a stone, then suddenly this party in opposition comes into government and plays that same card of taxation, something and a concept that they thought was overly done in the country.
Yes. You have a situation where
it becomes difficult for one to even understand the government.
We have a situation where we are in the account proverb thing, the stick that is used to hit so and so. It's the same stick that you can insist on that. It's your right, whatever the minority is. But it shouldn't detract from the real issues. And the real issues are that you can have excessive taxation, nuisance taxes,
yes,
what we call
as you described it,
on a long range of things, the administration of which is cumbersome and may not even rake in the expected income. The administration could chew up all your intended benefits, and the people who are paying would at the same time feel irritated. And then you can have a compact set of taxes,
yes,
easy to collect, easy to manage, and with a substantial revenue
which
base.
when aggregated becomes like a nuisance tax.
No, which is what we are trying to do.
But which when aggregated becomes like a nuisance tax.
It's not aggregated.
But the difference here is that it's been put together.
We are stopping petroleum levies as a source of taxation. From time immemorial, anytime you put in a couple of pesos on petroleum, it creates price inflation across the economy.
Yes.
We are stopping that. It's a major nuisance tax. It creates inflation unnecessarily. We are stopping that because of this.
Because of the e-levy.
The potential e-levy. we are stopping road tolls as well because of the potential from the e-levy.
Okay.
You understand?
So you're stopping the petroleum tax.
Yes.
Because of the e-levy.
Petroleum levies.
You're stopping the toll booth because of the e-levy. What else are you saying?
As in consolidating our taxes.
Yes.
Yes, these were the main ones. For all the other taxes existing, we have not touched any of them. We have not touched it.
But it doesn't mean that we're not paying for the toll booths and the others too. Because they are all factored in the
the toll booth is not being paid. That's why I said we are stopping road.
But they're all factored in the e-levy.
The e-levy, yes, it's a new tax that factors the returns, the revenues. It's not as if we are saying like for like. We have stopped this because we are doing this. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that it is a better source, a better primary source than these other sources that we are seeking to avoid. You understand? You are going to make more in a more concentrated manner, easily administered through e-levy than attempting to raise money from petroleum. That's what I'm saying. You understand?
Yeah, I get that.
So you concentrate your energies and your efforts. We have property taxes, and we have some of the worst administration of property taxes ever. So we are trying to use e-methods to identify properties and streamline the processes in property taxes. We haven't imposed new taxes there, but we are trying to clean up the system in order to improve it. Okay. Then we have revenue assurance and race is RA. I keep forgetting the C. Revenue assurance and is it collection enforcement?
Collection enforcement.
Which is supposed to deal with the so-called waste that the NDC is screaming about. Because it's a unit within.
It's not the NDC that's screaming. There's waste in the system.
Yes.
So it's not the NDC.
I agree.
There's even waste in the system.
The way they have used it now as the primary source. When you ask them for an alternative.
The Auditor General's report even talks a lot about the waste in the system.
It's true.
Yes.
But what I'm trying to say is that when the NDC latches onto waste control of waste. In fact, I heard at NDC MPC waste management. When the NDC latches onto waste management as the sole alternative to the e-levy, then we have problems.
Because if you look at the amount of money that goes waste,
we shouldn't allow
and what
that
we're
to happen.
expecting to generate from the e-levy.
So we have race. Race is supposed to work to plug the revenue leakages. You have revenue assurance and compliance. C is compliance.
Okay.
Revenue assurance and compliance enforcement. Because people are not complying with their taxes. People are not taking care properly of what they have when government gives it to them. So the waste is there. But what I'm saying is that waste is not a primary source of income for government activities. There's a primary source that is being wasted. That primary source is the problem. It's not adequate. You understand? So we need to deal with the primary sources and then at the same time deal with the waste. It's not enough to say that managing waste, controlling waste is the alternative to the e-levy, which is what the NDC is saying. That's what I'm trying to say. When you ask the NDC, what is your alternative to e-levy? Now they've realized that petroleum levies are not useful. They realize that you can't continue to borrow on the international market. It's not sustainable. So what they say is that manage, control corruption, manage the waste. Then Auditor General's report. That can be a continuing process. It cannot be the primary source of revenue for government expenditure. That is my point on the waste.
Okay, all right. I just hope that this e-levy, as you've talked about, will help solve the challenges we have in our economy. Because if you look at the past 5 years, and I mean, in terms of revenue generation, 66% of our oil revenue since 2011 was collected between 2017 and 2020. You look at the Eurobond market and the amount of money we've been able to raise on that market, and now with this e-levy to make it look as if that is really going to help us economically, you ask yourself that, so these kind of gains we've made in the past, I mean, for the past 5 years, what has actually happened to those gains?
It's beyond the past.
And it's like the e-levy is going to create the magic for us in the economy.
It could. It's beyond the past 5 years. Yes, it's beyond the past 5 years.
I'm just using this because at least this government introduced the e-levy.
Yes. I'm saying this because I remember distinctly Tekpe saying that all the money we collect, we used to pay salaries. You understand? So there's a big gap between what we collect from all sources and what we expend. And so most of the time, the gap is to do with capital expenditure, how to finance infrastructure. How do you develop a country without financing infrastructure? How do you do that? Because infrastructure is what creates the catalytic process to enable other parts of particularly the productive side of the economy to grow. So you need to fund infrastructure. Now, the e-levy has potential to do at least between 2 and 3 things that will fundamentally change public revenue processes in this country. One, it is going to establish a brand new primary source of revenue for government. Brand new primary source of revenue for the government. Yes. 2, it is going to make the government move away from 2 old sources that are a drag on the economy. We are enslaved to, which is petroleum levies, which creates general price inflation in the economy, and international and local borrowing to fund infrastructure, which is not sustainable. So that's the second thing. It can move us away from that, because that is our traditional means of funding ourselves. And three, it can help us to stimulate the real sectors of the economy, investing in infrastructure and investing in creating jobs. And that is what we need at the moment. So what we need to do, what is required, and this will benefit every government, NPP and DC, CPP, PNC. What we need to do as a nation is to ensure the integrity of the flow of funds. So that those funds don't disappear into the black hole that is the Auditor General's annual report. For me, that is the critical thing. That if you can ensure a brand new primary source of revenue for government that is not dependent on debt, that is not dependent on external largesse, that is not dependent on price inflation, and can be quantified clearly, then what you need to do is assure the population that this is where the money is going, and this is exactly the output you see from that money. So that it settles the minds of the people about the waste equation. Because there's that thing, they will take the money and spend it. And a lot of people are against the e-levy, not because they don't think it's good, but they think that they will not be able to account.
There are some who think that it's not good. I've listened to tax experts, I've listened to economists who say that it's not good.
The tax experts are talking about levels.
Some have even described as a lazy way of even imposing taxes.
So was stock tax lazy? Communication service tax, was it lazy? You can't say that it's lazy when it is a source that is burgeoning in terms of new business, new traffic, and all that. If you have an entirely new economy, which has risen from 2015 to 2021, from 35 billion cedis to almost 1 trillion cedis, you are telling me it's lazy to engage that economy and go and borrow? When you change that into dollar, you are talking about $160 billion. How much do we owe? How much do you owe? You are talking about $160 billion in a new economy. And instead of engaging that economy, we are saying it's lazy. So we should go and put a few pesos on petrol, and so that inflation will blow up. And we should go and borrow more money from abroad and end up at the IMF So it cuts all our investments into the real sector. It cuts our investments into creation of human capital. It cuts investments into everything that we need in this country. You can't even invest in infrastructure when the IMF comes, because going to borrow will end up at the IMF. And that's what the NDC started by saying.
You're so much positive about the e-levy because of the numbers in there and the benefits, I mean, financially.
Yes.
Because of the numbers. Now, numbers in terms of the number of people engaged in such transaction. Now,
as well as the potential resource flow.
Yes, so at least since you have that much numbers there, so you have that kind of. So if you bring in a tax like this, wouldn't it reduce those numbers?
That is fine.
And when those numbers are reduced, wouldn't it also reduce the expected outcome in terms of financial outcome that the government is projecting?
Yes, you see, George, we are in government. The people deserve to be governed. The people need to be led. How do you lead? As our elders say, the leader doesn't know when the back is crooked. So we have traditional leadership who deals with consultation, and because leaders take risks. That's why you take a path. A leader takes a path through an uncharted sea, and skillfully, using the support of the people, gets to where we have to go. Christopher Columbus discovered a world that existed, but because of the risk, he said it was a new world. There are people living there already, but you have to cross an ocean. Nobody had done it before. Ghana needs to take the leap from where we are sitting now, when projects, public infrastructure projects, take 18 years, 22 years, 15 years, 12 years, 8 years to complete. And sometimes the contractors even forget that they are doing the contracts. And get to the point where we are able to begin, initiate, consummate projects in the limited time that we have given them. Ghana needs to take a leap of faith in strengthening, in building ourselves, in beginning to believe in ourselves. I didn't want to say this, but let me say it. The companies who offer services and brought up financial services on the internet and are taxing, people are willing and ready to pay.
The charges.
The charges.
Referring to the charges.
Yes. They are willing and ready to pay.
Because they're offering services.
They are offering services. The government doesn't offer services. Is that what we are saying? Government doesn't offer security services. Government doesn't pay police and soldiers and immigration and customs and all those people and prisons. Government pays all those people to protect you. That's a service. That's a major public service, a public good. Government is expected to provide roads. Government is expected to provide school buildings. Government is expected to provide hospitals, employ nurses, doctors, teachers, pay them all. Government is supposed to provide public servants to process your land documents, public servants to process a license for you, public servants to process your passport. These are not services you need. Government provides so many services, but they are inadequate to your needs because they are government. Those are public goods and services that we all enjoy, but they are very, very expensive to provide.
To take care of these services, government will have to tax its people.
Government taxes.
But the same government we are talking about, this same government we are talking about.
Let's go back to the
same government we are talking about. Earlier didn't. We're talking more about production and less taxes and all that.
But at the end of the day,
at the end of the day, you have the government coming in and then.
Let me explain that thing. Nowhere did we say you stop taxation.
We are moving from taxation.
We are moving from taxation to production. What it simply means, because it's sloganic, you can't explain everything. It doesn't mean that you cancel taxes permanently and that you only produce. When you produce, how do you produce and use the services around production?
So it means that you still tax and produce.
Yes, you consolidate and reduce taxation on the people, the burden, the nuisance, the irritants on the people. That's what I say. You bring together
the 1.75 reducing the burden on the people. The 1.75, is it going to reduce the burden on people?
The policy makers didn't just pick out 1.75. They have reasons for that. So they should engage the public. I said that there are compromises. That in Parliament, one side was talking 1, the other side almost came down to 1.5 and all that. Now the telcos we hear are absorbing 2.5, which means there's room to come down. Yes, so 1.5 is based on a technical assessment. Another technical assessment plan, C or B or D or whatever, can also, me, if I have any difficulty with 1.75, I think it's the calculus. I think it's not too even. But otherwise, there must be a technical reason.
But you still not answered my question.
Which is?
Whether it's the 1.75 will reduce the burden on the people.
Taxation will always be seen as a burden on the people. when we were passing the communication service tax, in the beginning, when Kufuor wanted money to fund youth employment activities, then this brilliant idea
So 1.75 will increase the burden on the people?
All manner of taxation
will increase the burden on the
difficulty with people.
Okay.
But short-term burden as against long-term benefit is what you must look at. If you can get the roads, which will ease your own needs, if you can get better infrastructure, if you can get better government services, then in the short term, it is easier to contribute.
All right. We have just 10 more minutes for us to wrap up. Let's talk about the NPP and then we can wrap up. At your conference on Sunday, how come the amendment of these constitutional provisions as projected or expected did not happen?
Yes, because the amendment provisions, and I'll pick somebody's phrasing. I liked the phrasing. It's no more fit for purpose.
It's not fit for purpose?
Yes.
Wow, that's interesting.
So listen to this.
Okay.
Article 19
of the NPP
Constitution, which deals with amendments. It says that every amendment to this Constitution shall be made at the National Annual Delegates Conference, on the grounds. Provided, however, that no amendment shall be made unless A, notice of such amendment has been submitted in writing to the General Secretary no later than 2 months before the National Annual Delegates Conference. It was done.
It was done.
B, the General Secretary has circulated the proposed amendment to every regional and constituency officer at least 1 month before the National Annual Delegates Conference. It was done. Now listen to C. At least 2/3 of the delegates at the National Annual Delegates Conference cast their votes in favor of the amendment. That is where the problem is. You have between 6,000 to 8,000 people coming to debate 91 motions.
Or did it come down to 38?
No. It's 38 proposals.
Okay.
Within the 38 proposals, there are 91 distinct motions. For example, a proposal could be about the composition of the National Executive Committee. That's a proposal. And then within that proposal, some people want George and YB to be included. Other people want YB included, George excluded. Other people want George included, YB excluded. Other people want entirely new people to be included. That forms a set of motions under that proposal. So the 38 proposals had individually 91 motions. So every single motion would have to be debated on the floor at the annual national delegates within 6,000 to 8,000 people and voted on to come to 2/3 for agreement. It simply was unwieldy.
But that's what the Constitution says.
Exactly. So the Constitution, just like we are interpreting the standing orders. So the leadership had to take a bold leadership decision. They met, National Executive Committee met and decided that they will come before the National Annual Delegates Conference and ask them to authorize National Council, which is the second highest decision-making body, to establish a committee to deal with the proposals and come back to the National Annual Delegates Conference with a better streamlined set of proposals for approval. And in that process, perhaps Article 19 itself should be amended.
But as we speak, Article 19 stands?
Yeah, it stands.
Okay.
So that proposal amended, it will be part of the proposals that will come before conference next year.
All right. So with what happened, was it constitutional?
Yes, it was.
It was constitutional?
Yes. Because you can make a proposal, a motion, and a motion was made to the National Annual Delegates Conference, which is the highest decision body of the party. And the motion was that empower National Council, your organ, to deal with your proposals. And then when they winnowed it further, sharpened it further, to come back to you with the sharpened proposals to make it easier for you to determine these amendments to your constitution. And they agreed.
Okay. So that means there's going to be another conference.
Oh, every year there's a conference. We didn't do it last year because of COVID. Yes, every year there's a conference. This year was interesting because of the elections.
Which your internal elections?
Yes.
Okay. Was that the reason almost all the speakers kept talking about unity? Because there is an anticipation that these internal elections might bring this division, especially the major one.
In a sense, yes, you have to hammer and presume that there will be some heat. It's not that we are disunited, but that you manage the heat. Just like...
You're not disunited?
No, we are not.
Okay.
We are working towards the same purpose. Without a party in government, who are you leading? You understand? You are coming to lead in order to stay in government. You see, there's a change that people have to avert their minds to. And next time, ask Dr. Rahim. The assumption was that elections are tied to president's terms. Now we are saying that to break the 8, you must realize that elections should rather be tied to party policies. So parties can stay in power, continue with the embedded policies of previous presidents, and have a new president come in with a fresh vision, consolidate what is going on, and add on. So you need not change a president and his party, which is what has been happening. You can change the president after 8 years.
From having a different president from a different party. Is that what you're saying? If the change takes effect?
No, you can change the president of the same party.
Yes.
In other words, in 2024,
yes,
the MPP can remain in power,
yes,
with a new leader. But the country mustn't assume that because Nanado is finished, he necessarily goes out.
But the party is still there.
The party is still
yes.
there. That recognition is yet dawning on us. That's why we are saying we are breaking
How is that yet to dawn on us?
Because a lot of the past elections, we've tended to cycle it around the term of the presidents. 8 years. 8 years. 8 years. Exactly. The presidents have 8 years. What we forget is that the party being led by the president will have policies that need to consolidate, policies that mature, policies that inure to the benefit of people later than the 8 years. But whenever there's an 8-year change, the new party and new president that come in tend to abandon everything, tend to start off in new directions. Our development is becoming choppy. Stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. You understand? But if you have a party that is doing well, that has policies that are beneficial across a broad majority of people, beneficiaries, then you can keep that party and its policies in power and simply change its leader.
All right, so you're actually moving that whole concept from the individual to a party conversation.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what we are doing. Right. So we are united.
Okay.
We are united.
Just get ready to wrap up. I mean, why was most of the space about the NDC and President Mahama?
They are the ones we are going to compete against.
I mean, it's a conference. I mean, why? Why the fixation about?
We are not fixated.
You are not fixated?
No.
I mean, from the speaker. I mean, from every speaker, including the president.
We are not fixated at all.
Because the expectation is that just focus on the MPP.
We know who the NDC is bringing. It's John Mahama. And it doesn't hurt to focus the minds of our people. This is the party meeting. It doesn't hurt to focus the minds of our party on who we have opposing us and what our responsibility as a party is in ensuring that that person doesn't come to power. Because he's not an alternative. He has nothing to offer us. He can't deliver Ghana.
So why focus on him?
It's not a fixation.
So why focus on him then?
It wasn't focused on him. We know who is coming under the NDC.
Right. But if you know who is coming, you said according to you, the person is not an option.
Yes.
Why focus on the person then?
We have to point it out to the people that it's not an option.
We'll leave it here. Thank you very much. And
I'm
grateful for your time. Once again, Merry Christmas. And we end today's edition of Focus. I mentioned earlier when we started the program that today is the last.
Congratulate you.
Congratulate.
This is the last program for the year. Let me congratulate Focus.
Okay.
It's been brilliant. You've done a wonderful job.
Thank you.
And let's hope you continue doing an even better job into the new year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So on those notes, and thank you very much too for your time. It's been grateful having you around. In case you missed my wish earlier when I started the program, I'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas and a great coming year 2022. We are so grateful that you join us throughout the year on this particular program, Focus. And you've made Focus to become Focus. And we are so grateful for that. Our promise is that next year, we're going to step up the game and give you exactly what you want, even in a more interesting way, as you call it. Thank you once again. On behalf of the producer, Felix Kofi, together with the production team, the directors, the sound men, the lights men, the switchers, those in charge of graphics, our IT, thank you all. And Focus will return next year, 2022, in January. My name is George Sapo. Merry Christmas.